Thanks for joining me, Jess. So before we get started, can you introduce yourself and explain, like, how long have you been published? How many books you have published? Because this is we're coming up on an important milestone, right?
Yes. So I am Jess Michaels and I write almost exclusively historical romance, very sexy to erotic kind of range. I have been writing full time since 1999. My first full length book came out from Avon in 2005. So I have been published for what is a long time, 17 years. And I've been writing for over 20 years, and I feel so old every time I say that. Like, I said to someone earlier today, like, when I was a child, you could only publish traditionally, and we had to walk uphill both ways to get there. And then I thought, that's actually true, and I felt sad. So I'm a been around forever person, and I am about to publish my 100th book. So I'm a busy bee.
Yeah. That's an
Yeah.
amazing milestone. So it's
Yeah.
100 books across multiple pen names?
All the pen names, yeah. Almost all of it though is Jess Michaels. So there are about 10 books under, maybe 12 books under Jenna Peterson, and then there's 6 books as Jessie Peterson, which were my urban fantasy books. The Jenna Petersons were also historical romance. It just was that was what I published as for Avon, and then the erotic historical name was Jess, and that was the one that I ended up just going with, and that's kind of across the board my historical name now. So they were very similar. Like, once my agent asked me what was the line between them, and I'm like, it's very thin. So so I just stuck with Jess. But yeah, so between the 3 names, 100 books. But again, like, almost all of them are Jess, because a really good portion of them are what I've published since I went indie. So yeah, the
So
lion's share.
as I explained to you when I mentioned that I wanted to do this podcast mini series, I, looking at my own career and sometimes observing other people's careers, I have noticed that sometimes there is one day that just everything changes. And
Mhm.
so when someone has had a career as long and as productive as your career has been, I bet there are multiple days, right? We talked about this before we started recording. There are lots of different days when
Yeah.
things changed. But if you can think of one day as the day that changed everything, what would that day be for you?
Yeah, it was hard to pick one, but I felt like, so back in 2014, I was writing for a small publisher, and I, because I'm so productive, like, I like knowing my schedule, so I had a set of books that were coming out at the end of 2014, and then I had the next series already, like, sold to them for the beginning of 2015. And they were making a whole bunch of changes that I was, like, super uncomfortable. Like, I could see the writing on the wall that they were probably going to end up closing, because the whole thing was kind of falling apart. And I am a very, like, once I know the path, I take the path. Like, I mean, if you're in strengths language, I'm a strategic activator. So, like, I'm sitting there, I'm very angry because, like, this email had come and it was, sort of like, well, this has changed and this has changed, but don't worry, nothing is going to change. And I'm like, literally everything just changed, and this is not good. Like, I can see the writing on the wall. And I turned to my husband and I said, I need to try to get the rights back for the books that are coming out in 2015, because I hadn't written them yet. So they hadn't done anything. They hadn't put any, like, money into them because they didn't pay in advance. I'm like, I just need to get those back, and I want to go indie. And of course he's like, do you want to think about it? And I'm like, nope. I'm writing it. I'm, like, actively writing an email as I'm saying this. And he's like, but wait, because he's much more like, let's think about it for 24 hours. And I'm like, send. So, and it took a while, but ultimately they did. And fair on them. Like, I was contracted to write them. They did say, like, you can have those books that we haven't, invested any money in, and they could have dug their heels in. You can have those back. And they allowed me to, have my last 3 books that were that year, because they had already done covers and all that stuff. They put investment into that, to come out. And then I was able to go fully indie in 2015, which was such a life-changing thing for me, just because, like, that was so successful financially and personally. Like, I'm not built to work for a publisher, just any publisher. Like I'm clearly not built for this.
And
But that moment of like real clarity that like down the road, this thing, which did come, they did close, is coming, and I do not want to be still here when that happens, was at the time felt life-changing and ultimately became extremely like positively life-changing and career-changing.
so that brings up a couple of questions for me. One, I mean, that was 9 years into your publishing career. So what
Yeah.
an interesting realization to have 9 years in that maybe you aren't meant to work with publishers. Like maybe you should take the bull by the horns. Had you considered indie publishing before that point?
So in 2011, when I left Avon, which I think everyone knows that was not a great experience for me. That was like right on that cusp of where people were starting to do it. And I had a collection that I had put out and had done really, really well. But I had this like very traditional mindset still in my head. And I wasn't ready to learn how to be indie, like to actually make that corner. So I was like, yay, this did really well. And I never like put the next step, like, and then what do you do? Like, I still had that, like, I'm going to leave Avon and I'm going to go and be traditionally published. And I don't know how to not be traditionally published. And I see that a lot, like on my old podcast, I would hear, like when I would talk to people that were strictly traditional, like it's very difficult to go from that, like, especially when you've had a long career traditional, right? Like to turn that corner of like, and now it's all my responsibility. It's all my pacing. It's how do you even do that was a really hard question for me. And I was not ready. Like I thought maybe I was ready, but then ultimately I went and I sold books to Samhain, which again was like really good because I needed that for my my emotional health, just because I'd gotten so beaten up kind of at the end of that Avon experience that I think I needed like that, traditional publisher, like you're still okay, you're still good, like you're still, you don't have to put out all of the upfront to then fail, like look, you succeeded. But I think that had probably put that worm in my head that it's like, but I know I can do this, I just don't know how. And so it was maybe that like that background thinking on it for the next, let's see, so I sold those books to Samhain in 2013 and I left, or 2012, and I left in 2014. So 2 years of working there and like kind of in the back of my head going like, I can do this though. Like I can do this, like the way that I'm distributed here, the way that I'm, I can hire my same editor who I adore, like I can do these steps. Like they didn't feel as separated from me as like what the steps that you have in like in an Avon, where it's like, well, now you have massive distribution all across Barnes and Noble. Like I didn't know how to do that because you can't.
Right.
Right? You have to reach a certain level and maybe you can, but I wasn't going to be at that level. So I think that 2 years of kind of having that worm put in my head and then but letting it kind of percolate until I was ready was probably not the worst thing in the world. Although sometimes I think like, damn, if I had just done it in 2011.
That is
Oh,
that
the
is
good
kind
old
of
days.
yeah, that is kind of the flip side of, the day that changed everything is when we look at that, it sometimes brings up those thoughts of what if that moment had happened at a different time?
Yeah,
Which I mean, the fact of life is that it doesn't happen at a different time. That all the things that happen
yeah.
happen when they happen, and
Well, and
then
sometimes you need like they wouldn't have happened the same way if
right,
we hadn't had like this and this happen in between. And it's really easy to sit there and go like, well, I wish I had, but I mean, part of why I think going indie worked for me was by that point, my husband had left his tech career. He was available to be the support staff for the stuff that is not the creative side. So suddenly I don't have all that on my plate. So I'm allowed to just be almost strictly creative and like the face representation of my brand, and I don't have to do all those things. So I would have had to be learning not just how do you be this face of your own brand, which is the bulk of what I had to learn, but also like how do you really genuinely format? How do you really genuinely get out there? How do you really genuinely, like all of those things that he kind of does. And I think that would have been a lot harder for me in 2011. We probably would have ended up in the same spot, but I think I would have had a lot more struggle than starting out right from the beginning. He was like, look, I'm going to handle all of this stuff and you just create and and that will be the partnership, like has made that a much easier transition than I know for a lot of indie authors who you're doing all of that groundwork plus all of the creation plus all of the promotion. It's a lot.
Yeah. And there are layers there that you have to go through.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to go through those with the support of traditional publishers.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, you had to go through those layers with the trials and tribulations of also being a traditional published author, which
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of authors don't realize um, how taxing, how grueling, how emotionally risky sometimes that path can be. Um,
Yeah.
and
Because
so
I
I'm
think that the fallacy of it is like you just write a book
right,
and then they take care of everything else. And that is 100% not true. Even when I was doing it in 2005, it was certainly more true than it is today as a trad published author, and it was less true than it had been 10 years before that as a trad published author. In 1995, you would have had a different experience than in 2005. And you certainly had a different experience in 2015, and you'll have a much different experience in 2025 as a traditionally published author and how much you're expected to do. But that was never the case. Like I was the guinea pig for them. Like it'd be like, here's a program, do it. And if I failed, they were like, well, you're not that great. So that's probably why I failed. Which I'm like, great, I'm just gonna suck, I guess. I just say to suck. And if it did well, then they'd be like, cool, this works. We're gonna put like a good author, we're gonna give it to a good author. So it was like, ooh, like you just don't like, again, like when I hear it now, I'm like, wow, I was in like a super abusive relationship and that was not good emotionally for me. But at the time, like that was what there was. So that's what I expected to be, And again, like that's not always going to be everybody's experience. I know other people have had different experiences at that publishing house, other publishing houses, and plenty of people get support. But I think that's the expectation, is you're going to have this like Nora Roberts level of support and be going out on book tours. And 99.9% of us who have done trad have never gotten that.
right.
So like you're on, and I think that was part of the thing on this like day that changed everything, is I started thinking to myself, but if I already have to do it all myself, what am I getting?
Right.
Like what, like, so I'm just gonna lose bookstore distribution, like guaranteed bookstore distribution. But I've seen myself on the shelf in bookstores. So I'm good. Like, again, like sometimes like newer authors or indie authors that have never done trad are like, but I really want to see my book in the bookstore. 100%. A wonderful thing to have as a desire and a good reason to do traditional publishing, that you want to come in, you want to see 5 copies of your book in every bookstore, which, now, but like, that's still a thing. But like, don't you miss that? No, because I had it. Like I saw it. I like what I have now more. So it's like, it was worth the trade. But if I had never had that, of course, I would have been like, oh, I really
Right.
wish I had my book on the end cap and borders, but I did that. So
Yeah.
I'm good,
Yeah.
I'm good not having it.
The trade-off, once you have experienced both sides, is it's a different choice because
Mm-hmm.
you know what you're choosing. I'm curious about the books that you write. And if that day it changed something in you, but did it change how you write books, or did it change the books that you write? Like when you look at the books before that day and you look at the books that you've written since, either close to the date or the further out from it you get, um, did are you still essentially writing the same stories, or has that shifted over time?
I don't think, I think I'm pretty much doing the same thing. I mean, I think that when I went from, Harper Collins to Sam Hain, I think I had a lot more freedom with the sexuality level of a book, or, how I think that had changed, but I don't think that that has changed much in the since I left traditional publishing, Sam Hain, right? I mean, HarperCollins wanted like a specific kind, not, and again, I don't want to ever, no, they never said like, don't write this sex scene, but like, they wouldn't have been like, yes, write a menage. That's great for like a Jenna Peterson book. They would have been like, no, that's not what we're doing. Maybe they would have let me do that for Avon Red, but maybe in 2007, maybe not. Like I don't know that they would have been all about that, but that would have been where I had to do that. They definitely would have said do that as, for your mainline career, whereas I can do that now if I want to. So I think I have more freedom, but I think Sam Hain would have been like, cool, whatever, do what you want. That's fine. So I think that probably like the breadth of what I define as Jess Michaels is probably a little bit different, but the stories are still the same. So, you know, I mean, everything is very sexy, but not everything is erotic. And sometimes it is erotic because that's what serves the story or the characters. And so there's a little bit wider margin for that, but it's always the same margin I've written. I just used to do it under two names, right? And now I just have like consolidated because I like focus and I like just doing one thing. I can't do 15 different things. I am not built for that. So I'm like, I'm going to do this one thing. I'm going to do it really well. And I'm going to do it with this much of a margin instead of this much of a margin. And I'm happy. So, yeah. But I wouldn't say that the stories are really different.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I think that it's great that there can be a moment of significant change that changes your outlook on like your business choices without it fundamentally changing your craft or your art, right? That like you were like, this feels like the right path for my books. And then you got to carry them forward through that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that that's maybe me because I'm going to just drive forward. Maybe other people would have made different decisions. Maybe every decision maybe it isn't the best decision to do it that way, but at least I get to make the mistake. You know what I mean? Like somebody else isn't making the mistake that then I'm begging them to fix. Anytime if I've made the mistake, it's like, well, I screwed that up and either I can fix it or I have to just like follow through until I'm out of that mistake. And then I go to the next thing. And I think that that's the thing that I've really liked is like, you're going to have screw ups. Like we all screw up. We all, you know, don't do the right thing or, you know, some retailer, like something, the wrong file gets uploaded and then you're trying to fix it for a week and a half. But the difference is that like, I don't have to depend on anybody else or feel like that the failure of the thing, the failure of me is because somebody else screwed it up. Like, at least I care enough to fix it. You know what I mean? Like I care enough to own it and fix it. So, you know, that's always been one of the better differences for me.
Yeah. So just before we wrap up, I wanted to ask, what will be your 100th book? What's the title? What is it about? When does it come out?
So it comes out May 10th and it's called 100 Nights with the Duke because why wouldn't you put 100 in the title for the book that's 100th book? It is a standalone book. So if you've never read me, it does have some visits from prior favorite characters of mine and other people's, but you wouldn't have to have read their books to understand what the hell's going on. Like here's people that are in love. Yay, maybe go read their books. But it's about a duke who had an affair with a courtesan and was sort of forced into a proper marriage, but has always known that he's in love with her. And now that his wife has passed away, he's decided he's going to rekindle that and wants more than just an affair versus she's like, oh, but we still have the same problems. So is this really gonna work? Like I'm cool for orgasms, but please don't tell me you love me. So it's very much a, you know, win the girl back kind of trope. You know, he falls first, like all of that great stuff, like courtesan duke, all that stuff. So, and it comes out May 10th and you can pre-order it. By the time this airs, you can pre-order it. So go and find it.
Well, I'm very excited to read it. I'm looking forward to it. Okay, so now the last thing that I want to do is something which I first saw on Inside the Actors Studio, and then I did on my blog before, back in the day when I started writing, which was 2011. I had a blog where I would interview authors and I would ask them these questions, and so now I'm bringing that back to life a little bit for this podcast series. So these are they're called the Pivot questionnaires.
Yes, Bernard Pivot.
Bernard Pivot. And so I'm just going to go through the questions and I'm curious to know what your answers are.
Okay.
So first, what is your favorite word?
So I did think about these beforehand. Yes. Yes is my favorite word. I like consent and I also like being given things. So
what is your least favorite word?
So this one I pondered for a while and my least favorite word is ye. So like ye old whatever. Like Michael used to say, like, you know, like robots don't say ye, which is this thing from Futurama, and it just grates on my I don't know why. I'm like, why is that so? But ye, like referring to it like ye old whatever, drives me insane.
Have you heard that it's not ye, it's thee? that the Y is actually a TH symbol.
Oh, like a different pronunciation. Right.
Yes.
That's like, oh.
Yes. I cannot give you a source for that at the moment because I had forgotten it until you said that, but I think I've seen a YouTube video about that. If it is true, then I will, when I post
link
this
to it.
YouTube, I'll link to it. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, see, now I would be less mad about that.
Right? It
So
doesn't make
definitely
any
let me
sense.
know if that is true.
Yes, absolutely. What turns you on?
Passion. All kinds of passion. Like, I like people that are driven and love what they're doing and are excited about what they're doing. That makes me excited about what they're doing or what I'm doing. Like, I like to be around passionate people.
What turns you off?
Bigotry, but especially the kind of bigotry where someone thinks that they're not bigoted. Like, that nails on a chalkboard. Like, it's 2022. Can't we just all do a little bit better? Just a fraction better, I would take. It's a low bar. So low.
It's very low bar. If people spent a little more time listening and thinking, that would
like we don't need to talk when someone's talking about their lived experience. We can just be quiet and not talk.
Yeah. What sound or noise do you love?
I'm going to be like goofy and romantic and say my husband's voice.
So
we will be married. We have been married for 25 years now, so I still like him.
That's
and not just because he manages all of this really crappy parts of the publishing career.
Not just because in 2014 he was like, oh, you sent it. All right, let's do that.
Oh, the email's gone. Okay, well, I guess I will figure this out. Yeah, that was helpful though.
What sound or noise do you hate?
I really don't like phone notifications. Like, I don't have notifications on my phone for like my Twitter or my Facebook. Like, I don't want notifications. Please don't notify me. I will go and look at it when I want to. Like that ding. Oh, and whenever you add a new app, like it's like auto wants to give you notifications, and suddenly my phone's blowing up, and I'm like, what's happening? Who's dead? And then I realize it's just like, my dog's, track his food app is like, hey, have you tracked it today? I'm like, oh my God, you freaked me out. So I hate that sound of a phone notification. It drives me insane.
What is your favorite curse word?
In the words of Roy Kent, fuck. Fuck is actually better. But fuck. That's my favorite. It's the best one. Like, does anyone ever pick a different one? Like, fuck, come on.
I can't remember from when I did this back in the day. I can't remember.
Go through your archives.
Yeah, I'll have to go through the archives, but I do remember multiple people definitely picking fuck.
Yeah, I was always surprised, like on Actor Studio, when someone picked something other than fuck. I was like, what?
You think you know someone. Yeah.
Yeah, God. Can I even like your movies anymore?
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
I would like to attempt being a retiree. There's this TikTok right now that's going around where it's like, I don't dream of labor. And that is me. Like, if I can't do this, which I love and which for the most part I love and like is very nourishing creatively, like I kind of just want to be a slug. You know what I mean? Like, not have to do anything, like just be retired. Like, I think it's hard because when you do something that you really love, like you're not dreaming of doing something else, like I don't have like a backup plan. Like, if this fails, I guess we just live in a box, try to be happy. I don't know.
So then this question might be easier. What profession would you not like to do?
So I picked anything poop related, none of the poop professions. Like, I don't like that show Dirty Jobs. Like, I know so many people are really into it, and I'm like, oh no. No. I have we don't have kids, so I have a very like unmanageable gag reflex, and I'm like, no.
That's fair. And then the last question, and I should add the caveat that I'm an atheist, but I still love this question, and so I've reworded it slightly. If there is an afterlife, what would you like to hear a god or goddess say when you arrive there?
Yeah, I'm an agnostic, and I also really love this question. So I would like them to tell me that I had helped people, because that's like the impact that you have on other people is, to me, the most important thing. So I would like to know that I actually had a positive impact, because sometimes, people will only, you really only hear from people when they want to tell you how you screwed up. So just like knowing that you did all right on the whole would be good. I think I would be satisfied with that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming and talking to me about the day that changed everything for you, and for renewing the Pivot questionnaire with me. I really appreciate. I was on your podcast when you hosted that, and that was a lot of fun. I always like talking to you about publishing and being a good person and figuring our way through this life, which is sometimes a challenge. So it was really
Yeah.
nice to see you.
I know, it's nice to see you too. I always love talking to you as well.
Good luck with your 100th release in May.
Thank you.
And I hope that, I don't know, in another couple of years we can look back and, well, I might, at this pace I'll probably hit my 100th book in maybe about 5 years. So
Okay. We'll
we can
touch
talk.
base then.
We'll touch base then. We'll talk
Yeah.
before then, but we'll
We'll
definitely
talk
touch
before
base
then,
then.
but like we'll surely talk then.
We'll do another interview. Yeah.
There you go. Perfect.
All right.
We'll
Well,
compare notes.
just before we go, remind people where they can find you. What's your website?
So my website is authorjessmichaels.com, and you can sign up for my newsletter there and get a free book for just joining. I am on all social media as @Jess Michaels BKS. So Jess Michaels Books, Jess Michaels BKS. And I'm on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, and I'm on TikTok technically, but really I'm just there to thirst over Pedro Pascal. So like, don't expect anything exciting from me. Most of my videos I make private, so I don't actually like do TikTok. But yeah, that's where I am everywhere.
Awesome. Okay, well, I encourage everyone to check out your website and grab your 100th book. And thank you so much for joining us.
You.